Contradiction, being human is so tragic. Focus on minorities, ignoring all the masses. Hallelujah, everyone. Activism saved the planet. No more plastic straws and paper, just paper straws wrapped in plastic. Congratulations.
Hello. Welcome once again to Coal Region Discontent. On these segments, I like to get out conservative voices. I like to get out candidate voices that maybe some people haven't heard of, some have heard of, to let people know that there's a choice that they can make. We should be being joined today by Lieutenant Governor candidate James Earl Jones from the Philadelphia area. But before we get started and before he joins us, I'd like to remind you that you can always find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, anchor.fm/coalregion-discontent. We're also on Getter at CR Discontent, now on Truth Social at Coal Region Discontent. So remember to share this and hit the like button. So that's the only way we get our voices out there. It's the only way that some of these candidates are heard. There's a lot of money being thrown around in this primary race, and there's also a lot of people running. There's quite a few. I was expecting to meet some at the Lycoming County Patriots meet and greet, but a lot of them didn't show up. A lot of them just sent representatives, or they had more important things elsewhere, or medical problems. There was a couple like that, but I'll tell you what, some of them did show up. About 3 of them showed up. So, but any minute now, we're going to be having James Earl Jones from the Philadelphia area. He is, like I said, he is running for lieutenant governor. And, well, hopefully he'll be joining us soon here. Like I said, there's other candidates running. We got a Kerry Del Rosso from out by the Pittsburgh way that's also running for lieutenant governor. And if you tuned in before, we had Teddy Daniels on here. He is running for lieutenant governor. He's campaigning with Doug Mastriano. There's also a lot of governor candidates that are running that people don't know about, like Gale, Garreau. A lot of people don't know about that because there's a lot of money going around. A lot more people just know about Mastriano. A lot more people just know about Barletta, who is also running. And they also know, of course, about the Democratic Josh Shapiro that is running. So, like I said, remember to subscribe to the channels, all in Coal Region Discontent, and like and make sure you share the video so that people can other people can hear these candidates. There's always a lot of things going on in the area. There's a lot of things you can do to go meet and greet. You should always do your research on candidates. You should always make sure you know who you're voting for, because I hate the fact that people on both sides of the party, Democrats, Republicans. I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I am more of a conservative, more of a civil libertarian. I differ with my views on a lot of things than Republicans. And I definitely differ my views with a lot of Democratic politicians. More of the progressive Democratic politicians, my views differ. But if you don't know who you're voting for and you only know who you're voting against, well, then you don't even know what you're voting for. All right. Looks like we got.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon.
All right. Hey, I was just telling people that I was up at the Lycoming County meet and greet yesterday, and you were also there. That was a pretty long trip you had to make, because you're from the Philadelphia region, isn't that correct?
Yes, actually it's about 15 miles right outside of Philadelphia, Mike. But being there with Patriots, I guess the sky's limited. There's no great distance that I won't drive to spend time with Patriots. And I've been a member of the Tea Party Patriots probably since 2006, 7, 8, somewhere in that ballpark, because I'm one of those kinds of conservatives that I don't just go along with the flow and just to go along to get along, if that's the way you best described it, because I am a firm believer in standing for what is right. And I know that hanging out with people like what happened up in Lycoming Patriots yesterday, I love being around those kinds of folks, man. It helps.
Well, there were a lot of people there, a lot of people expecting a lot more people to be there to make the trip. And I'm glad you did. And I'm glad we got to finally meet up there. And have you been a Republican your whole life?
Yeah. I have. It's amazing because growing up in a Democratic Southern background in rural Luxor, Arkansas, most of us were kind of born as with the D on our birth certificate, so to speak. But I didn't go along with the flow because I thought I did not certainly like the Jim Crow laws that were being enforced. And I equate right now the Jim Crow laws way back when I was growing up to compare to the Jim Crow laws that are trying to split our nation today and trying to split Pennsylvania. I see so much in similarities, Mike, especially when it comes to the vaccinations. At one point you had folks saying, hey, lock them up, throw them away, put them on an island all separate by themselves because we chose not to take vaccinations or we chose not to wear the mask. And that creates a divide. I mean, how is it that you're going to go to a coffee shop or to a grocery store or to a dry cleaners, and then all of a sudden somebody is going to get very upset because you chose to manage your health the way you chose to? So Tea Party patriots, I should say, have always been in that attitude of don't tread on me. And I love that then, and I still love it now.
Well, I always felt like Ronald Reagan said it best with he's going to be the type of Republican that was, getting all people's back and getting out of their pocket. Because it seems as though there was a divide. And even at one point in time, you pointed it out, one point in time, they people were saying they should just be left for dead if they didn't get vaccinated. And I was telling the people before you came on here that, well, I mean, if you don't know who you're voting for and you only know who you're voting against, then you really don't know what you're going to get. And there's a lot of that going around on both sides of the aisle. They've been telling us not to vote for Democrats. And Democrats been telling them not to vote for us, but nobody's telling them why to vote for them. So,
yeah, and you're so right. Yeah, one of the things that I've experienced, Mike, just simply having pretty solid postings on social media to try to help a lot more folks in the Pennsylvania area to understand who I am. And I do a lot of, direct contact with individuals as well. On my website, jonesforlieutenantgovernorpa.com. And I take a lot of phone calls, 808-321-1570. That's my direct cell phone number. And I like talking to people so they get a chance to know me. For example, yesterday up in Lycoming, so many people wanted to know who I am. First of all, it's kind of unusual to see, like you said, a Black man who, drives 3 hours just to come in and sit and chat with some other patriots. To me, that's easy. That's not a hard one at all, because I believe it's important for people to know who I am and get a chance to deal with skin to skin. A lot of folks said they had not heard about me or heard who I am or what I even stood for. So I'm going to go where it's going to be widely known that James Earl Jones is a Republican. Been a Republican all my life, been through 3 wars, Vietnam, Beirut, First Gulf War. I trained Navy SEALs. Mike, I think that's important for people to know that my life of service didn't just start when I decided to run for lieutenant governor. And I think so many people, it's like what you just said, was very critical and important. Some people just started this track because they said, oh, wow, there's blood in the water. Mm-hmm. We're seeing Joe Biden make all these fatal critical mistakes regarding the economy, domestic policies, foreign policies. He's leaving us out to dry. So they are smelling what's taking a red wave that's going to wipe across the nation. And I do believe that's going to happen. But I still think that we, as Republicans, need to be really careful about who we vote for. Here's why I'm saying that. Somebody commented on one of my postings on my social media page. They said, James, we understand you voted for, not voted. We understand that you have given lots of money to Democrat candidates. Now, I know that is not to be true, but it was a person I said, have you lost your mind or you just can't see? Granted, there are a lot of us running for office, but there's only one James Earl Jones. And just because you met one other person who may be running in this statewide party for a position, that doesn't mean that person was me. It means I am me, and you need to get to know me. And you certainly will find out that I'm not going to be spending $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it might be to donate to Kamala Harris or to Barack Obama. That's not who I am. And when I read that, it really bothered me. And so I attacked the guy very harshly, and he eventually did his due diligence. And he came back to me and he says, James, I apologize. He says, I have been so wrong in my assessment. He said, will you forgive me? I apologize. Well, I'm a Christian, pro-life Christians. I said, of course I forgive you. I can't hold that against you because you didn't know any better. And I've been into places, Mike, where so many people call me another person's name, and I'm not going to call his name, but I'm not that person. I'm not running for some other office other than lieutenant governor. But people mistaken identity of me and another person running for a statewide office, and that's what they had made the mistake about. So it's important to know who the candidates are. And one thing that I also put on my posting, and this might blow your mind, because I know a lot of stuff is happening with the lieutenant governor candidates, lots of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I said on one of my postings, I introduced myself. I am James Earl Jones, Republican candidate for lieutenant governor. I am not a career politician. I've never been arrested. I've never had DUIs. I've never had fraudulent checks charges brought against me. I've never had a protective from abuse orders brought against me. I don't have a Purple Heart, but I do have the heart of Christ. And I made that really clear. So my campaign manager, Patrick Cubbage, received some phone calls and says, hey, what in the world is James doing coming against us, saying all these different things? I said, no, they got it wrong. I'm not doing that. I'm separating myself from the pack. So when you start doing your due diligence, you know that I can win in November. I can win. You're not going to find any dirt in my closet. And so,
running for public office is for the public. It's not for personal reasons anyway. So anybody feeling personally attacked should be taking it with a grain of salt anyway.
I completely agree. But some of the information is going to be harder for the Democrats unless they come out and clear that act up real quickly. And again, that's what the purpose of this primary is all about, so that we can be able to identify with the candidate that we want to support and that we want to go for it, because we have so much to lose right now and we have so much to gain. Josh Shapiro made a comment just recently, and he says that he's going to do something that I've never heard a Democrat do in all the days of my life. Josh Shapiro says he's going to remove the gas tax. I've never heard anything. And so he also says he's going to do something else with the Turnpike Commission. And he's gonna do a review of RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which he supported. Mm-hmm. And I find this hard to believe. Now, if he was so in sync with making those kinds of changes, why did it have to take him this long? And he's been here with Governor Wolf for now 2 terms. Why did it take him this long just to realize I can be able to have some impact on taxes or that job killer RGGI? Instead, he's now saying that he wants to support RGGI because it's time for re-election. And he wants to go in to become the next governor. And all we're going to get is Wolf 2.0. We don't need that. We don't need that. And secondly, we don't need another 3rd term of Wolf. He's got some crazy policies, and we don't need to have them sticking around and affecting us in Pennsylvania once again. RGGI, for example, is so, and this is something that Wolf supported. We are spending $325 to $525 million a year up until 2030 to support RGGI. Yeah, and here's the bigger thing. It is a lot of money. Here's the bigger thing. See, it's not his money. It's our money. And so he doesn't mind it. But here's the bigger thing. What he had said that it was going to do was to improve emission standards. Well, let me tell you what the results are. 0.0002%. So we're going to spend $325 to $525 billion each year up until 2030, and that's all we're going to save each year. 0.0002% of an emission standard. He doesn't know how to. He's not a business person, and that makes me a little bit better qualified, whether it's for against Wolf. And what we need to have is a governor who's going to be sharp enough to realize I need to have a James Jones as my backup plan. I need to have a James Jones who understands business. I need to have a James Jones who can be able to help eliminate some of the help eliminate RGGI and to bring in new business to make Pennsylvania business friendly again, or I should say, open for business once again. Right now,
I'm glad that you mentioned a lot about with the turnpike taxes and the gas tax and things like, because there's a lot of people that are running for your office, running for the governor's office, running for the Senate office, and they're all running on countrywide issues. And it doesn't seem like any of that is going to benefit Pennsylvania. I mean, yeah, the border might be in bad shape. It might be a humanitarian crisis, if you want to call it, in Ukraine. But this is Pennsylvania. I mean, we're one of the largest energy producers in the country, and we also have the third highest gas tax in the entire country. For what reasons? It's supposed to go towards the roads. And if you've seen the roads lately, I mean, especially in my area in the coal region, we feel like the forgotten people here, because the only time people were to come around here was when they were trying to get Pennsylvania and saying they went for coal and stuff like that. Or so, and there's a lot of people riding on Trump's coattail, talking his message, but I think a lot of people can tell who's talking the message and who's just parroting it just to try and get a bunch of people. So you said you were Christian. You said you were also a pro-life candidate. Mm-hmm. If you want to elaborate on that. I know where I stand on pro-life, which I am pro-life. I feel like at the end of the day, you had the choice for the most part if you engaged in sexual activity or not. So there was your pro-choice. I mean, people will argue that for the 1% of abortions that are made for other reasons, incest, rape, things like that, but everybody else is using it as birth control. What is your stance on that?
I'm a pro-life all the way through and through. In fact, I never heard anything at all about abortions until I turned 18, joined the Navy, and then I heard about Roe v. Wade. Then I began to understand about abortions. Because I come from a rural community, Mike. My community, everyone respected our neighbors. We respected one another. My dad was a deacon in the church. My mom was one of the mothers in the Southern Baptist Church. My grandpa on my dad's side was a Southern Baptist preacher. So I grew up in the church as a pro-life Christian. There was no discussions of abortion going on. In fact, I remember growing up and I got to see my very first shotgun wedding. Okay. I mean, I've heard about them, but I actually got to see one. And it was amazing how it happened. But it was kind of in the reverse order. This lady had a daughter, and her daughter had been impregnated by this young man from our neighborhood. And it wasn't the lady, because her husband had passed. It was not her who broke out the shotgun. It was her dad. It was his dad, the boy's dad, who came up to her, and he marched him right up there, and he had a 12-gauge shotgun. I remember it so well. It was kind of like the community gathering, when we saw it go down. And he says to her mother, and he got her together, and her daughter, he says, "My son has embarrassed me and my family so incredibly wrong," what his actions were. He says, "And I would like to let you know I am terribly sorry about what he has done by impregnating your daughter." And he said, his name was Mr. Brown. He says, "What I would like to offer," and he had that gun with him. It was like, and they could see he was very serious. He said, "I would like to offer my son to do several things. I would like first to offer my son to marry your daughter if your daughter and you will accept my son to marry him." And so that was a long discussion right there. And then he says, "Secondly, until that decision is made, my son will bring to you," I think it was only making maybe $100 a month. And so he says, "My son will bring to you," I believe it was $50 a month, "and he will take your daughter to the doctor for prenatal care." He had it mapped out in its entirety. So, he had to do that. And of course, that left a big impression, indelible impression with all the boys in the neighborhood. You don't do that stuff unless you wear some kind of protection. Wow. So that was one of the first. And yes, I'm a pro-life Frederick Douglass conservative. I'm a business person, and I do have a 3 to 5 year business plan for Pennsylvania, and for Pennsylvania alone. Mike, that includes the economy, it includes environment, education, and energy. And if I can break that down for you real quick, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
The economy is how we get people back to work and how we get jobs open again. We have to have investors coming into Pennsylvania. People need to look at Pennsylvania as a great prime resource to come to work, to open up a business, to raise a family. But right now, we're not doing very good at that. Secondly, we have to be able to have businesses that are engaging with the friendly environment at all aspects. And I believe the lieutenant governor's position, as far as building out the economy, is to go out there and look at the 35% of people that lost their jobs. We have to try to inspire them. Hey guys, you want to give it another shot? Reopening up again. You got different leadership in the office. There's the governor's office. We control the governor's office, the House and the Senate. Let's talk about what we can do to help you get back on your feet again. But 35% of businesses shut their doors over the last 18 months when we went to that pandemic lockdown.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of taxpayers. Small business make up 95% of the employment in America anyway, but that's a lot of taxpaying dollars that we caused to shut down because of what Governor Wolf did with his ability to overreach and Biden's ability to use overreach over the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. We did not have to surrender those rights, but we did it. And that's affected our economy greatly. That's why we have inflation going up right now. And then I've heard Wolf talk about adding 9 more tolls to the Turnpike Commission. That's ridiculous. That's not going to help our economy. So we have to have a business person smart enough that we can look at how we can have a strategy to reduce taxes all across the state. And I have a plan that includes looking at every entity that creates dollars. Public Utilities Commission, Turnpike Commission, DOT, I did say Public Utility Commission, the Sheriff's Department, every place that makes a dollar. I'd like to find out where those dollars are going, and I'd look at how we can streamline operations, how we can be able to do a little better job rather than to make people feel that Pennsylvania is not friendly towards us. The other part is that the environment. Of course, you heard me mention Reggie. I would make a recommendation. Obviously, everything I'm talking about has to be approved by the governor. He and I are partners at this stage. So with Reggie, I would make a strong recommendation for executive order to ban and eliminate Reggie immediately and stop making payments on it immediately. Then I would say we need to have everything that is inside Reggie to change their strategy to make business-friendly environments and permits again. For example, I've been over 67 counties here in Pennsylvania. I've talked to developers, real estate. I've talked to all sorts of people. These folks say to me, James, I've spent $200,000-$300,000 for a permit, and it's taken me 2 years, and I still haven't heard back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my money back, and I'm going to go to someplace else and reopen. Now, these guys are talking about big business, distributors. They're talking about developers who are going to look at real estate here in Pennsylvania, open space, areas that, could certainly have been authorized to permit groundwater support, and they chose not to do that. They being DEP. We have to make them a bit friendlier. And the mission statement would be Pennsylvania is open for business. And if they can't support that, they'll have to resign and go someplace else. We have to have that attitude. And plus, I have contacts in the international community. These guys know that I'm running for office. They said to me, James, I'm talking about heads of states in Africa, Asia, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, UAE. These guys are saying, we understand what you're doing right now, and we'll love to be able to come visit with you when you're next lieutenant governor. We'd love to be able to talk about importing, exporting, how we can be able to expand our trade. And so I'm open to see that. And another thing, let's look at, Reggie, how they prohibit permits, even with farmers. I met with the Pennsylvania farmers. I love those folks because I was raised as a sharecropper. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I grew up as a sharecropper on a cotton farm where we worked very hard. We tilled all the land and you never made any money out of it. We always stayed in the red. But my folks felt they had to be entrepreneurs, and I guess that's why I feel that same way today. But I met with the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, and I had some heart-wrenching stories about some of the issues that they're faced with. One of the bigger issues of that is they are trying to do everything they can to augment their income, even during the course of this pandemic crisis. They said we were going to lease out our barns to people for weddings. In my opinion, you're going to create a stream of income. It's not a lot of money, but they had a problem with that coming from DEP. They said, well, you need to have a sprinkler system in place. You need to have proper lighting in place. You need to have all these different mandatory requirements in a rural community. And they said, listen, all we're trying to do, someone stops in, makes a request to do a wedding inside our barn. We want to accommodate. The cows don't need sprinklers. They're not concerned about that. The chickens or dogs, whatever. But they forced them to have to do that. And they said, this is not going to work for us. And then they also having a problem getting product to market, which I said I'd be able to try to help them as well. And then, oh, I'm sorry, you was going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, well, as the lieutenant governor, if you were to get voted in, you would be president of the Senate in Pennsylvania. Is that not correct? So you'd be able to push some of these policies through that you're talking about right now. But you keep saying about the Reggie. I don't know if my viewers would understand what Reggie is.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard of it, but maybe a lot of them haven't. And I don't know if maybe you wanted to expand on what that Reggie is that you're talking about getting rid of that bill.
Sure. Reggie is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And that's why it's a certain program set aside. Instead of calling it climate change, which we all are familiar with that,
Yes.
They gave it a new name, Reggie, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And it made it sound like it was something that was very popular. But all it is, it's another cash cow that somebody is making a bunch of money of our taxpayer dollars. And we're pushing it into a black hole that will never be filled. And that's why I said it costs like $325 to $525 million a year that Governor Wolf has included in his budget that he wants to make sure it continues on. Now, yeah, you're right about being a chairman of the Senate. And what would happen with that, Mike, and that is being a chairman of the Senate means that I would have to engage with not only Senate leaders, but also with House leaders. And what it means is that engagement, when you got a project, we're talking about the economy, the environment, education, and energy, you got to have project leaders. In business, that's what you do to get something done. It allows you to hold people accountable for accomplishing their role and making it happen. We have 67 counties. All of the senators, every one of the representatives should be engaged to support the governor as he's moving forward with his initiatives while he's in office for the 3 to 5 year plan. They have to come on board. They dropped the ball, not our folks here, but they dropped the ball on President Trump in Washington. When he had the presidency, we had the Senate and we had the House. They did not give him the full support as needed. We're not going to make that mistake here again. In Pennsylvania, we're not. And that's why I said I will make personal visits, not only during the course of a split decision vote as a chairman, but I will make decisions to visit with these guys to make sure that they understand their engagements with their roles to help accomplish high performance inside Pennsylvania. And just by the way, I'm meeting tomorrow with about 51 different Republican House of Representatives who asked to meet with me for breakfast tomorrow in Harrisburg.
Big breakfast.
Yeah, in Harrisburg. And I got like 4 hours to meet with these guys and I have an agenda that we're going to talk about what their roles will be with the James Jones as the next lieutenant governor. And that role is to help, as I said earlier, with those 4 platforms to get them widespread in all 67 counties and to make sure that they're doing their part. And if we have a poor performer, again, I have 2 companies, HR consulting practice, and I have a petroleum company. But from the HR side, when you have a large scale group who are working on large scale projects, there has to be high performance and personal accountability. So what my role is to make sure that people understand their role in the economy and their environment and to education and to the energy. Each and every person will have something to do that are leaders. And if they're not supporting the goals and initiatives of our governor, they're going to lose. It's just like any job. You get talked to about poor performance, then you get put on a notice, a written notice. You're not performing. And if you're not wanting to accomplish the goals of this governor, you need to step down. We'll find someone else who can be able to accomplish the goals of this governor. And if they're not ready to really support it, we won't endorse them. We won't help them out at all. And we'll do everything we can to remove all responsibilities for them, even if it means impacting their pocketbook, their pay. If you don't work, you should not be paid. And so far, from what I understand, a lot of people can create these none of these fictitious jobs that they're doing with his constituent services. They're all over the place. They come in and they're tired. Oh, every time you talk with them, I'm doing something. I believe in having reporting. What are you going to report on? What's your overall report on helping this governor accomplish success in the environment, in the economy, education, energy? What have you done to support that? Because we will have benchmarks.
Well, I did hear you say you had a 3-point plan, and education being one of those points. And I know a lot of people are worried about that. My views on education are that schools are there to teach your kids how to think and not what to think. And a lot of stuff's getting pushed through the schools. Now, it might not be exactly what some people are calling it, but it's still, it's a grooming kind of process, like with all the behavioral health therapy and all these other things with the safe spaces and things. It's like, it's not the school's job to be accountable for your child's mental health, their well-being, and their moral standards or work ethic. That's, as parents, I mean, they hate when we say it, but Democrats hate that. Even Barack Obama said it, that, you know, if a person is born with a 2-parent household, they have a better chance than a single-parent household, and a single-parent household is more likely to end up in jail committing crimes or other things.
And you're absolutely right, because my education plan includes having trade taught back in the schools. We need to be able to give inspiration to kids to learn how to use hand tools. We need to be able to talk about how to use plumbing systems, welding, pipe fitting, drywall fitting, masonry. We need to inspire that, because not everybody wants to go to college. And I'm not taking away, but I'm saying we need to inspire that starting in the schools. But we also need to have school choice. We need to have parents who know what's going on with their child. And if they want to have that child to go to a private school, a Montessori school, or even to do homeschool, that child should have that ability, that parent should have that ability to do that. And also the funds, the taxpayer dollars should go with those parents. And speaking of taxpayer dollars, I believe we need to put a halt on senior citizens who are spending real estate taxes and it's being paid to the counties for education side. I think we need to stop that, because we really have a strong review of it, because senior citizens oftentimes have fixed income. Absolutely. And they may or may not have children going to school. So we need to look at how we can help them even while we're educating our children. We need to also include civics, teach the Constitution, Pledge of Allegiance. We need to have people more inspired about what their history is about. I mentioned earlier that I'm a Frederick Douglass conservative, and I use that mic as a platform to get the interest of a lot of people. Not a lot of folks know who Frederick Douglass is.
Not anymore, they don't.
Well, yeah, Frederick Douglass was I'm gonna call him a lobbyist, but he was a civil rights leader. He was born into slavery, and he inspired the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, to write the Emancipation Proclamation, which set slaves free. He had that strong ability to influence Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and so was Frederick Douglass. But Abraham Lincoln says he struggled with it, but he finally was able to succumb to it, and he set slaves free. In Pennsylvania, we got a lot of people hanging on to a lot of trips, guilt trips, a lot of strange stuff. They need to be set free. For example, this CRT thing. As you heard me say, I'm a Christian. I do not believe in critical race theory teaching. I believe in Christianity as we are made in God's image. God, and God looks just like me. He looks just like you. He looks just like a lot of people. But we certainly are not going to teach love when we're talking about I, as a Black man, should be considered greater than you are as a white man, because that's the theory that they want to imply. You've impressed us because of slavery. You suppressed us because of a number of different things. Listen, teach history, teach civics. We have an ugly history in America. Yes. But you know what? We can't keep living in our history. We have to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to hold you accountable for your actions. If someone discriminates, if someone calls your name, you hold them accountable for their actions. But meanwhile, let's look at who our adversaries. China is teaching their third graders a multi-tier calculus, while we teach our third graders how men are having babies. That is ridiculous. And first of all, it's called pedophilia whenever you have a kindergartner teacher asking a kindergarten about their sexuality.
There's no reason for it.
There's no reason. And lastly, we need to have school board members who are going to go into those libraries and read the books, find out what books are going on inside, look at what's happening, and hold that superintendent, the principal, and everyone accountable for the curriculums that are being taught. There's a lot packed into the education piece. There's a lot to unpack about it, but we have to have people that are willing to do something and not just talk about it. A lot of people are afraid to, though, Mike. They're afraid to jump out in there and talk about hard issues because they're uncomfortable. James Earl Jones, I'm not uncomfortable with talking about. I told you I grew up with Jim Crow. I'm not afraid to talk about it.
Real racism.
Real racism. And the last part, energy. We have to have, we're sitting on 150 to 200 years of energy in Pennsylvania. We've got enough resources here to make the entire United States great again. But we have to start in Pennsylvania. For example, the Keystone XL pipeline, we need to have pipes running all the way down to the Philadelphia Navy shipyard or over to Chester Port. Get that product out there to the market so we can sell it to Germany. We can sell it to our clients. We got Marcella Shell and so many others who are able to help us. And by the way, I've met with the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, and they are talking very positive about me. They want to see a James Earl Jones in office so they can understand they got somebody who knows the challenges, what they're going through. None of these other candidates have a background, Mike, and I want to make sure I get you the chance to cover everything you need to talk to me about.
Listen, I came on here. I brought you on here to use this as your platform right now because I feel like people need to hear the different choices they have in candidates and not just what they hear on a slight commercial on YouTube or the radio, or the ones whoever puts the most money out is who they're going to hear about. And that's who they've been hearing about. And what I like perfectly what you said, like, because kids don't think in color. Kids don't think in sexuality until they're taught so. Yes. And I believe that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Because when I see kids right now, and I look at some of the, what they call it, TikTok, most of them are out there dancing, they're playing music, they're singing. I'm talking blacks, white, Hispanics. You look at it in the United Nations, and they're all dancing, they're doing things, they're using culture to express themselves to one another. That's what we need to look at and say, okay, you guys got a handle on it. They're young, some of them are young, some of them are older folks, but by the same token, they're not talking about how one person's skin color causes them to be superior and another skin color to be inferior. And nor should we embed that in any of our students in schools, not at all. But it's important to have a strong history, teach people how to read, write, and be able to do arithmetic, because we have to be prepared for how we're going to get our kids prepared for our future. Unless we teach them how to be successful, teach them the American dream is within reach. As I said, I come from a sharecropping background, Mike, but I am very successful in my energy business. I have to, and let me talk about that just for a brief moment. Right. I believe we need to get energy efficiency all over the place. Energy is more important than climate change, okay? We have issues right now that we just got to get people back to work. We can be able to create thousands and thousands of jobs working that pipeline, or being able to have permits being allowed so we can drill, so we can have people investing into Pennsylvania. We have a lot of other resources inside our lands of Pennsylvania, and we need to have investors coming in, putting that money in there, setting up shop, making Pennsylvania great again. But we have to have a friendly environment to get that done. My background, a little bit further, I've worked with more than, and none of these other folks have. I've held responsibilities over 275,000 employees. I've dealt with budgets well over $200 million. I've dealt with 26 labor union contracts. I've managed them. And I also dealt with 26,000 employees who walked off the job. I inspired them to come back together and come back to work. And that's why I think I can bring Pennsylvanians back to work, whether it's Republicans, Democrats, Independents. I think we can get the House back together and the Senate together, get us synergized, and we can stop having splinter votes even within our parties. Because if we're Christians, we have to get over some of that stuff. Move on away from it. You know, let the Christ inside of you shine. But if you're acting stupid and being stupid, that's not going to shine. It's going to show how ugly you are. And the Bible says, is a candle meant to be put in a bushel basket? If you're a candle and you're allowing the love of Christ to shine through you, the Bible says, out of abundance the heart, the mouth speaketh. Don't let junk come out. Don't let stupid stuff come out. Talk about things that's going to be, project driven that's going to help to increase and uplift mankind. For example, I was talking with some folks not long ago about prison reform because the lieutenant governor's role is a board chair at the Pardon Prison.
Okay.
So I was talking with these guys and they said, well, what's your view on prison reform? I said, well, first of all, there's no cookie cutter approach, but I think as looking at parole and pardons, clemency, I said you have to look at the entire whole person concept. You can't say, oh, because this one here had a small charge. No, you look at the entire person. Even though he may have had a small charge brought against him, a lightweight charge brought against him, how was his attitude or his performance when he was locked up? Did he support the policies and rules? Did he give the guards, follow orders by the guards? Did he show repentance for his wrongness that he had done? And if so, let's take a strong look at that. But if you got somebody who pedophilia or somebody who's used a gun to kill somebody, or gun violence, now you're not going anywhere. You're going to serve your time because I know one thing, history says you're going to repeat that again. You pedophilia folks, there's something wrong with that DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Something is wrong with that. And these guys got something off kilter. We need to leave them locked up.
Crimes against children are unforgivable.
Unforgivable. And so if we have a chance to look at the prison reform and people coming out of prison, if they got for example, just an example, they had some marijuana, or they had a violent fight or something like that, and they didn't kill anybody, hurt anybody, they destroyed some property. And if they had a drug or alcohol problem, they got rehab. I think we might be able to look at them and see if they're worthy to be released on parole of some sort. Well, and help them to become returning citizens that pay taxes. Give them a chance. We serve a God of a second chance. I believe in that wholeheartedly, but I also believe that you have to be held accountable for your actions.
Well, I believe that as well. I know there's a lot of my listeners, and especially around my area, after seeing what just happened here, we'd like to know what the next governor or lieutenant governors feel like about second chances, because Pennsylvania gets a lot of federal money for touting rehabilitation in prisons. And I feel like if you've proved yourself that crime, depending on what it is, if it's a crime against children, if it's murder, there's certain things that you can't forgive, but say drug charges and things, you do your time, you pay your debt to society, your fines, whatever you're doing. And then 15 years down the road, say you want to run for public office or you can't own a firearm. And that's where I differ with some Republicans on the blanket approach they go towards that. Say, if you got a felony, I mean, a felony charge can be not paying taxes in certain cases, but you're taking away the right to hold public office. You take away the right to own a firearm, which I feel like it should be done on an individual basis. Actually, what you just said, that you should look at the whole person. And I'm actually glad that you said that, because a lot of people, they just removed somebody who got elected into office. They removed him from office, a councilman in Shamokin, PA, because of something he did 15 years ago and he was open about, and the people elected him in, and that to them told them that, hey, you can elect whoever you want, but or you can vote for whoever you want, but only we get to choose who you can elect or who sits in office. And that did not sit well around here, and it's still not. So that was just something I like to ask candidates about too, because there's laws. I get there's laws. Some of the laws are 160 years old, and some of them, the stuff that's illegal now was not illegal back then. So maybe they weren't thinking that way. So, and
you're right, Mike. What you just said, it reminded me of what's going on with marijuana right now. Now, I know that we have our current Lieutenant Governor, John Fetterman, who's out promoting recreational marijuana, and I'm not in favor of that at all. Marijuana, if it's being used and prescribed by a medical physician, I'm all in favor of that. A lot of people use it for pain management instead of opioids. A doctor knows how to deal with his client. But if you're talking about just having marijuana as a recreational use, we have enough problems with our juveniles and our teenagers who are smoking cigarettes or vaping, and we're trying to get them to stop that because it's very harmful to their bodies.
Or alcohol.
We don't want to create a gateway drug with using recreational marijuana. And one of the things that it does, recreational marijuana sends a very ugly message. And it says that you can get out there and do drugs and you will get lazy. You can be nostalgic. You can not want to work. You can talk about, I was tired, I overslept. and you missed your bus, you missed your work, going to job, driving under the influence of a commercial vehicle while on the job, guess what? It's some legal marijuana. And if that's what we're inviting more trouble into the Commonwealth. So again, we look at this marijuana, recreational marijuana. You can't stop folks from using it. That's what they want to do. But it's still, DEA has it classified as a felon. So we have to be smart about how we make those kinds of decisions. But we're just causing people to be lazy if we don't hold them accountable and they don't want to go to work or they say, I can't go find a job. It causes your body to fall back and regroup. You don't want to be as active versus a person who's not using marijuana, or recreational marijuana, and they get out there and they pursue jobs, they pursue goals, they have high levels of performance. That's what we need to get back on, man. We need to be able to allow them to have that little juice to keep them moving forward. But marijuana, recreational marijuana is not going to encourage that.
Well, I also feel like there's a lot bigger issues that we need to worry about in Pennsylvania than deciding if we should have recreational weed or anything. There's so many other things going on. I mean, from our schools to our roads to our unemployment to our industries leaving because there's no tax incentives. There's no zones. There's, like Trump did, opportunity zones in some states. There's nothing here for businesses to want to be here. I mean, and then a lot of the area was coal. I mean, a lot of things are made from coal other than just burning it. But a lot of, like, the regulations and stuff, coal companies had to shut down because it was just too expensive to stay open. And wages may be rising, but inflation's outpacing wages. So you can't win. There's a lot more things that that have to be taken care of. And a lot of people are striving for this. We need it recreational. It's like, okay, well, even with any drugs, look at Portland, Oregon, look at Washington. They're trying to decriminalize all drugs, actually. But alcohol is decriminalized. Alcohol is legal, and people still steal for that, still kill for that, still die from it, you know? So I feel like it's the character of the people rather than the drug itself most of the times. And I feel like I've always said the drug was a symptom, not the problem. But yeah, like you said, there's also bigger things to worry about. You said a lot of it with your education, with the energy, and well, with our economics. Like, this used to be a pretty striving state at one point in time, and there's a lot that we could get back to. We had the first oil well right here in Pennsylvania, and there's people trying to they just want to give out handouts. Everybody's feeling entitled. Think we need to get our workforce back. But I feel like if there's anything else you'd like to cover, I can give you the last word here.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for being here. I'm so honored that I got to meet you face to face yesterday up there in Lycoming with the Patriots. I feel that Pennsylvanians are ready for change. They're ready for new leadership. They're ready for someone who has a plan to make Pennsylvania great again. I campaigned with Donald Trump, and that's one thing that I did learn from him when I was down the campaign trail. Trump made a lot of promises, but the thing about it, he wrote them down. He made promises and he kept them. Mm-hmm. That's something that I learned from probably one of the greatest businessmen that I've ever met, had a chance to spend time with and campaign with. And I believe that if Pennsylvanians will give James Earl Jones that same opportunity, we can make Pennsylvania great again. My website to reach out to me, if that's something that your viewers would like to do, it's Jones, FORLT, Governor, PA.com. You can call me on my cell phone, 808-321-1570, and I'll be more than happy to reach out and speak to you. If you want to make a donation, there's an opportunity for you to do that. If you want to join as a volunteer in my campaign, I'd love to have you. I'd love to hear from you. I got a strong group of core believers who are strong patriots, they're Christian folks, and they want to see Pennsylvania become better than what it was before. I believe we've had some Republicans that are in office that let us down. I mean, they let us down with Act 77, which was the fraud-friendly mail-in voting solution that was not necessarily even needed.
No.
But I think that happened because we had people who did not understand the impact of what it has done to our Constitution and to our republic, as well as it caused us to lose the best president that we've had in America in a very, very long time.
Yes, we did.
So I think we have to change that.
Well, I can attest that you personally attest that you do answer when people message you or call you or anything. I can personally attest to that. So I hope people will reach out to you, and I can wish you luck in this primary. And depending on, I mean, after the primary, whether you want to come back on or not, I'm going to try to help you get your voice out there. I try to get, like I said, I try to get candidate voices out there just so people know what they're voting for, not just what they're voting against. So,
that's beautiful, Mike. And I just want to add one other thing. I was talking with what's the guy's name? Dr. Oz, remember Oz, just today. And I know he was endorsed by Donald Trump recently.
yes.
And one of the things that he said to me after he and I had a chance to talk, similar to what you and I talk about right now, he says, James, I would love to have you on a platform with President Donald Trump and I when he's going to come to Pennsylvania in the next week or two. I believe it's going to happen before the May 17th primary. And I look forward to being there. And Michael, I certainly hope that I have a chance to share with you that date of when he's going to be in town, and that I'll certainly be able to, you can share with your listeners that President Trump will be in Pennsylvania. And because he has made the endorsement of Dr. Oz, rightly or wrongly, I still think that President Trump has a strong deal of influence with patriots in Pennsylvania.
Well, he had his reasons, whatever they are. I'm sure none of us will probably understand, but we all do trust the man. And I know this country around here in my county and stuff is pretty much Trump country. So they would appreciate that.
Sure.
But I'd like to thank you for coming on, Mr. Jones. And like I said, I wish you all the luck in the world. You're running a strong campaign on your own. It's not like one of the big financiers people out there. There's a lot of people spending a whole lot of money in the governor's race, and it's making it harder for everybody else. And it's making it harder to get other voices out. But I hope to have you on again. And, well, like I said, I always end the shows with, I believe that the Constitution is the best political document ever written. I don't think it needs rewritten. I think it needs reread. And I think you should treat your neighbor as if you would treat yourself or your own family. And all right, well, we'll see you next time, and good luck out there, and God bless.
Thank you, Mike. God
Look, I get it. It's like the world is going crazy. Seems like a school shooting happens almost daily. The racism, rape culture, hatred that we're facing is way too ingrained for our hashtags to change it. We've become so lazy and complacent, afraid of our generation. We think activism's Instagramming memes and complaining. It's a problem when there's actually actions you could be taking, but you're triggered, so you just cry like a baby.
Y'all so stupid. Why are y'all so stupid?
Get better problems, I swear to God that y'all want them, y'all so dumb.